Yeah, hi, I'm back again. Sorry, it's been a while. And I have made videos, but they sound all doomy gloomy because there's a lot of doomy shit going on. But I don't want to come at you with that. Um, there's some fascinating stuff going on. ukcolumn.org. When you go to it, it looks like this. Go down to Brian Gerish's testimony to Reiner Fulmick. Our oppressors are very frightened people. It says on May 28th, 2021, I gave evidence to the 54th session of the, I can't speak that, it's basically the Corona Committee, the German-based extra-parliamentary inquiry by lawyers into the medical establishments and the public policy makers' handling of the COVID crisis internationally. Okay, now there's some great links in here because they are talking about the use of behavioral psychology. And there's a link that there's lots of links, but talk about, it says, back in 2010 and 2011, we as the UK column were warning that the government had set up a team which was called the Behavioral Insights Team. This was a team of psychologists who were working directly alongside not only the political process, but the policy forming process within the government. It says a critical document which we found in 2010 was called Mindspace, and it's a hyperlink. You can find it easily. It's a hyperlink. In that document, the government admitted that it was using applied behavioral psychology to influence how it designed policy and how it implemented policy. At one particular point in that document, in fact, it's at the bottom of page 66, if I remember correctly, the government boasts that it can change the way people think and behave, and that people will not be aware that this has been done to them. But it adds the caveat that if they do realize that their behavior has changed, they will not know how it was changed. It says, we read this document and we were shocked, and then we started to research further. That then led us to discover that around that time, and of course a little bit earlier, the British government had been conducting meetings with the French, in which they were bringing the political psychology teams together to produce joint plans with the French. The key Frenchman, blah, 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 his name is, I can't pronounce it anyway. Now all these meetings were essentially held in secret. Okay, well, it goes on. It gives you other links to other documents. Talks about the panic paper. Now, I still haven't, I guess there's a link to it somewhere in here. The panic paper is German. Says, yes, Brian Garish says, yes, I've heard about the paper in Germany. I haven't seen it or been able to read it in English. I'm going to suggest to you that the German paper would have come out of the specific talks that I just referred to. When we started to see that the British government was having these secretive meetings with French applied behavioral psychology experts, it was clear to us that this was going to be rolled out in other European countries. So I was not surprised when I heard about that German document. Now in the SAGE document, which is the British thing, it says, aside from saying that they were going to ramp up fear, there was something very interesting. It said that inside communities, community members were going to be used to effectively police each other. So people were going to be used to put pressure on their neighbors, for example, to wear a mask, to adhere to social distancing. So it was very clear, and what they were talking about was that they were going to use this covert applied psychology to pressurize citizens to act against one another. And significantly, they also said that this has to be done with some care, because they believed that it was possible that this situation could get out of control. Clearly, what they meant by that is that instead of having somebody saying to somebody else, you should wear a mask, that requirement could be translated into violence. Okay, well, we know this. They talk about the neuro-linguistic programming. NLP is something, I've looked it up before. I mean, they use it in advertising. They use it all the time. Neuro-linguistic programming. Okay, let's go to, it's a fairly, I'd say it's probably a half-hour read. I've been getting to it I'm cleaning bathrooms and cabinet fronts and all that stuff. Okay, Reiner Fulmick says, but as the picture emerges, it has become ever clearer for more and more people to understand, to first see and then ask questions and understand. That's why they're pushing so hard, because they understand that something is going off the rails right now. Yeah, they do. Brian says, yes, they're understanding that people are waking up, and we are seeing this. I think that there has been a great, social media has stabilized. I think in many places on social media, you're seeing a huge improvement in the quality and the accuracy of information coming out. And I don't think they ever realized that people would use social media for professional analysis and reporting as you're doing today. This frightens them a lot. Reiner says, good. Brian replies, so I think we've got to expose what's going on. The other thing that we have learned over 10 years is that it's always better to slightly understate what you're talking about. If you tell it reasonably gently, you can always come back and have another go. But if you're too aggressive, if you're too forceful, if you scare people, then you lose them. So we've tried to always be talking about what's happening very quietly in a measured way, and also we don't cover all of the things that we're watching. To take an example, people are talking about magnets sticking to you after an injection. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not. I'm interested to follow it to see, but I'm not going to report on it because until I can prove it, I don't want to say anything that could undermine what else we've talked about. So I think the approach of not being caught up in being too outspoken and aggressive helps people to come to us to absorb the information. If you want to end on a really positive note, I decided to put some greenery behind me today because I thought a little bit of sunshine and some greenness might lift our spirits a bit. I believe that something very interesting has happened in the last 4 or 5 months. Professional people are beginning to ask the right questions. Since I think the speed at which this is happening is now causing all of these strange decisions you're seeing by the establishment. The sacrificing of Fauci and the rush to get the children vaxxed. Even then, they haven't got the rest of the policy, even though they haven't gotten the rest of the policy through. This, to me, is a sign that they are very frightened people. The last thing I'd like to say, and I have to smile when I say it, is that there was an activist in Chicago called Saul Alinsky, who wrote an extremely good book, which is called Rules for Radicals. And I've been saying for years, go look at that book. And in the book, he's talking essentially about techniques to overthrow the government. But one of those things he says is to always make it personal. Brian Frolmick says, yes, that's what we're doing. Brian says, and so it's not enough to talk about the BBC. We've got to talk about Tim Davie, the Director General of the BBC. It's not enough for me to talk about the MHRA. I've got to talk about Dr. June Rain, the Chief Executive of the MHRA. The other thing which you can accept or laugh at, I'm very happy either way, is that even in writing to some of these officials, it's very powerful if you put their picture on the letter or the email that you send to them, because what that does, it takes it from a dry communication to actually putting straight into their minds that you're looking at them as an individual. And of course, what am I doing here? I'm using applied psychology, but if the bad people use it on us, I think we can use a little bit back on them. Reiner Fulmick, well, that's what we're doing, actually. We're making it personal. We're going after these people personally, not after the institution. Says, thank you. That was extremely interesting and very important, and I think we're going to be able to hear much more from each other because we have to stay in touch now that we realize, I mean, we've had this suspicion all along, but now we realize that this is an internationally concerted effort by very, very evil people. Brian says, yes, and what a wonderful opportunity that is, because whatever else these people do, they are constantly pitting nations against nations. If we get a little bit broader and we look back at the wars and the trouble, it was this type of people that caused it. And I think we've got a wonderful opportunity now. The pandemic that has been thrown at us to make us fearful could actually be the very thing to get people coming back as human beings. No matter what their nationality or religion or color is, I think we've got a very exciting opportunity here. Yeah, people are, I don't think they counted on the amount of harm that is happening, like, immediately. There are, the 54th, the Corona Committee is moving, steaming right along, and the lines are being drawn. The thing is when you look at, and they have a bunch of these papers here, but when you look at the laws that have been passed, well, actually, Brent yesterday turned me on to, and I've seen one of these videos before, but it's Fall Cabal on BitChute. I'm working on, I don't know how many parts this movie is. It's part 2. But it takes you through the history of what groups have been doing this all along. How they've changed their name and how they've merged. And right now I'm watching the segment on the UN and the devastation of every place that they go. It's definitely, it's hard to imagine that this has been happening right under our noses. But it has. And the amount of harm that is coming that has been happening to nations, to people all over this planet. And we've gotten little glimpses of it. We've heard little bits and pieces of it, but I can't look at it. I can't do anything about it. I got too much shit to worry about. Well, it's here. It's on our front step. They're making their move. But there's people like this, and I say it's divine intervention, because these people have been putting these pieces together for decades. And now we're seeing how the puzzle fits. And we can see who it is. I said, we don't have to do this, because it's not our fight isn't against each other. It's these people in the background that have made these policies and instituted all these just unbelievable measures, like water and food right now. You need to be thinking about water and food. California, those dams, those reservoirs were supposed to be for a 5-year drought protection. They were at almost capacity in 2018, 2019, when they were worried about Oroville collapsing. Now they're at less than 30% because they've been letting the water out, of course, blaming that smelt fish again, and they've cut off farmers. Well, if the farmers don't have water, where do we get our food? We already know that Billy Boy has been buying up farm. He's the largest owner of farmland in our country, or maybe the second. I think he's the largest. They're telling us that we're not going to have meat. They're getting rid of meat. Well, who's invested in those fake lab grown whatever it is? It's not meat. Yeah, Billy Boy. They want us eat. I guess the FDA approved some kind of mealworms for human consumption. I mean, there are things happening that need to be stopped. Glenn Beck did a special called The Meat Mafia. I know a lot of people will get turned off by Glenn Beck. Look at the information. Take him or leave him. Look at the information. They're telling us almost daily. I mean, and they're happening. Cyber attacks are happening almost daily. But they're telling us how vulnerable our grid is. And it is. Now, my whole thing is these people, I mean, of course they have their AI on the pulse of the nation, and there are a lot of people that are, did you see the gathering in, I think it was London? I mean, people are coming together. People are waking up. They need distraction. They are throwing each other under the bus, but they need a distraction. And have you seen the kitchen sink? Because they are throwing everything at us, including the UFO report, which I guess was a big nothing burger. I haven't really looked into it because I've been watching this stuff. It's pretty outlandish what's happening, but it is happening. We need to let each other know that it's happening. Food and water. Food and water. What do you do if the lights go out? There's something, I don't know how to share them because they're on my Telegram. I can share them to other people on Telegram, but there's been just, in fact, there's a YouTube video of a man he's actually a naturalized citizen. He came from the UK, going off on the school board. There are parents taking over school boards all over the place. There are things that need to happen. But, again, they're going to need a distraction because there's big arrows pointing at the people that are behind all this, that are at the spider in the web. So my thing is just be prepared for anything. But there is some sort of divine thing going on. People are in the right places. There have been, you could see the Ever Given thing where that boat got stranded. I mean, there are, I think, people behind the scenes. I believe, I know that there are people behind the scenes that are countering this. So we just got to be prepared for whatever, and just know that there's going to be, we're in the storm right now. There are sunnier skies up ahead. We've got to get this evil cabal taken care of. And so many, I mean, it'll be a better world, a much better world for all of us, and we can go forward. Much love.